Good morning. I'm Heidi Pilars, Senior Director, Special Programs at the 92nd Street Y. Thank you for joining us both in person and online for today's event, The State of New York, featuring three of New York's most consequential congressmen, Tom Suozzi, Mike Lawler, and Dan Goldman, in conversation with 92NY CEO Seth Pinsky. Before we begin, a quick word about the State of New York, which is part of Newmark's Civic Life series and 92NY's signature program on the issues shaping the city and state's future. We bring together conversations around the most pressing issues facing New York, giving you the chance to hear directly from the people making decisions that affect New Yorkers. Since launching online in 2023, we've covered topics including the housing crisis, AI, New York's economy, education, public health, and the future of the MTA. This year, we moved the series to in-person, starting with a conversation with New York City Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch, and we are thrilled you're here with us today. When it comes to shaping New York's future and New York's voice in Washington, D.C., we couldn't ask for more impactful representatives than today's three congressmen. Tom Suozzi represents New York's 3rd District, including parts of Queens and North Shore of Long Island. Mike Lawler represents the 17th District, covering Rockland and Putnam counties and parts of Westchester and Dutchess counties. And Dan Goldman represents the 10th District, encompassing all of Lower Manhattan and parts of Brooklyn. These are complex times. Partisanship divisions both in Washington and across New York raise urgent questions. How much bipartisanship is possible today? And how much influence can New York realistically have over the federal policies shaping its future? Our three representatives confront these challenges every day, and we're fortunate to have them here to share their perspectives. A few quick housekeeping notes before we begin. We kindly ask, please do not video record this event, and no flash photography. Audience questions can be submitted on the index cards being handed out, and we will do our best to get to as many as possible. Our conversation today will be moderated by Seth Pinsky, CEO of the 92nd Street Y. Over the past 6 years, Seth has led the organization through the 150th anniversary, a comprehensive building renovation, as you can see, and also a major rebranding. Previously, he was Executive Vice President of RXR Realty, where he led investments in emerging opportunities across New York, and earlier, he played a central role in developing Mayor Bloomberg's $20 million plan to protect New York from climate change. He also served as president of the New York City Economic Development Corporation. It's my pleasure to welcome Representatives Tom Suozzi, Mike Lawler, Dan Goldman, and Seth Pinsky.
Hi, everyone. Turn on the microphone. Hi, everyone. It's great to see you here. This is going to be, I think, a really interesting and timely conversation. I was going to open actually with a different question, but we were having a conversation before we came out here, and we were talking about just how partisan things are and polarized things are in Washington. And each of the congressmen said that they thought it would be interesting to start with a diagnosis of why exactly things are as divided as they are. And Congressman Suozzi, you had some thoughts on this, and maybe I'll start with you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us here. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Thanks to my colleagues for being here as well. I think there's 4 major factors that are contributing to the division in our country right now. One is that of the 435 seats in Congress, 380 are safe seats. You can't lose. They're gerrymandered, they're redistricted. You pack all the Republicans over here, you pack all the Democrats over there. If you are in a safe seat, you can't lose, you don't really listen to the people. The only way you can lose is by losing in a primary. Very few people vote in the primaries. Less than 15% of the people vote in the primaries. And the Republicans in their primaries pander to their base, and the Democrats in their primaries pander to their base, and they're ignoring what's going on in the rest of the society. So one thing is people pandering to their base because they're afraid of primaries. Number 2 is social media. Social media rewards extremism. The more extreme things you say, the more likes you get, the more followers you get, the more small dollar donations you get. It's an incentive to be extreme. Third, cable news. Cable news, Fox News only has 3.5 million viewers for its top show. MSNBC only has 1.9 million viewers. They're really putting out perspectives as opposed to like trying to educate us. They're trying to get people excited at the edges, and that's promoting extremism. But the thing that was not talked about nearly enough are our foreign adversaries. The Chinese Communist Party, the Russians, the North Koreans, the Iranians are filling our social media feeds with fake bots and accounts that are promoting two sides of every issue, especially those that get us mad at each other. So they'll take Israel, Hamas, and they'll blow up both sides to get everybody pissed off. Black Lives Matter versus Blue Lives Matter, both sides get it. Transgender evangelicals, both sides get everybody upset. Whatever the Charlie Kirk, both sides, they'll do whatever they can to say, I don't recognize those people. What's wrong with those people? And it's all these systemic things are promoting division in our country. It's very hard to escape from that toxic environment.
Congressman Lawler, do you have anything to add on that topic?
No, I actually agree fundamentally with what Tom outlined. I think all of us, though, have a responsibility as Americans, as neighbors, as residents of this state. Look, it's very easy to point the finger. It's very easy to say it's the other party, it's the other side, it's the president, it's the leader in Congress. It's very easy to do that. But always remember when you're pointing the finger, there's three pointing back right at you. All of us have a responsibility in terms of the tone, in terms of the language that we use, in terms of the way we talk about issues. There are serious challenges. There are also serious disagreements. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. We want to have robust debate. We want to have a real dialogue about what is the best solution to an issue. But it has gotten so stupid in the way that we talk about these issues, and you know, all of us can look at what goes on in our own conferences, the people that get attention for saying some of the dumbest things you've ever heard, but they get attention for it, and people latch on to it. It really has, in my opinion, dumbed down the debate and made it just easier for everybody to dehumanize each other, throw out any adjective that you want to describe somebody you disagree with, as opposed to actually delving into the substance of the idea or the issue. You know, Zohran Mandami and I have very different opinions on issues, yet we served together in the state assembly. Him and I got along very well while I was there in my one term in the assembly. We would play poker at night. We would talk. We have very different views, but that doesn't mean that therefore, because we have different views, we can't engage each other in a constructive dialogue. And I think that's where we have so totally lost the plot. And it's a challenge. And a big part of this really is the gerrymandering. I'm in a seat that Kamala Harris won. Tom's in a seat that Donald Trump won. You know, we're both in problem solvers. We're both, you know, we grab a drink every now and then. We talk. We don't see eye to eye on everything, but we're not out there attacking each other in a personal way. We're talking about the substance of the issue and the disagreement. And I think that's where we have to try as a country, as Republicans, as Democrats, to get back to an actual robust debate about the issues as opposed to the personal attacks, which is really what has driven the debate and discussion into the ground.
Congressman Goldman.
Yeah, nuance is dead. And that is largely because of social media and cable news. People don't have the attention span to listen to more than one sentence. And it becomes very difficult to delve into the issues and not to figure out some phrase that you're going to use and pound into the public. I'm in a very different place than these two are. My seat, Lower Manhattan in Brooklyn, is D plus 60, which means I win my general election with 85% of the vote without doing a single thing. So I have the very opposite pulls that Tom is talking about because of gerrymandering, where my only threat is my primary. And so one thing Tom mentioned, that yes, the extremism is incentivized by the gerrymandering, by the more partisan districts that increasingly exist and increasingly are created. And small dollar donations are generated by being inflammatory. That's how a lot of people generate those donations. And I think that's bad. And I think that the social media stuff is a real underrated problem. We do, on a bipartisan basis, talk about figuring out how to regulate some of the social media companies. And we have our free speech rights. We have Section 230, which basically makes all the social media companies immune from liability for anything that anyone says on there. But we can attack those algorithms, and we can regulate the algorithms, and the algorithms are what's toxic, not just to our political discourse, but to our mental health, to our kids, et cetera. The last thing I will just say that I think is really important to try to cut through a lot of the partisan divide is that we elected officials have to be willing to criticize those in our own party. There is a tremendous amount of pressure not to do that. In the House, the majority is everything, as we all have seen. The Republicans are in the majority. We, on the Democratic side, cannot put legislation on the floor, cannot subpoena. If they get one more vote than we do, then everything is decided by that. So criticizing your own party ultimately can hurt the opportunity to get the majority. And no matter what the divisiveness is, we have different policy ideals. You know, the big bill was a purely partisan bill that the Republicans were able to push through with no Democratic support. That's because they're in the majority. So that is the ultimate, and that's true on both sides. But for us to get through this partisanship, we have to be willing to criticize our own party, because otherwise the most extreme voices prevail. They're the loudest, and that's what people view the different parties as. And it's not actually the case, but it is what the public perceives to be the case.
Can I just pick up on one thing? He's talking about social media and regulating this TikTok thing, okay? There was overwhelming bipartisan support in the House and the Senate to say that TikTok must divest from the company that is owned by the Chinese, is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. We overwhelmingly voted in the House and the Senate. The president has delayed that now. It's going to be for a year, okay? It's probably illegal that he did that. But we have to be very concerned about the fact that our foreign adversaries are using these algorithms and promoting ideas just to get us mad at each other. So these countries, the Chinese Communist Party, for example, they want uniformity. That's their main thing. They've got a million people in forced labor camps for the Uyghurs, a Muslim minority in China. But there's all kinds of things they do with surveillance in Tibet. And they believe in uniformity. They see the diversity of America as being our greatest weakness. They can't beat us militarily. They can't beat us economically. So they want to divide us from within by feeding our kids and us with these messages that just get us pissed off at each other. It's a major, major threat. We should hopefully, coming out of this, we're going to think about how we can work together on Section 230 to hold the platforms accountable.
So I want to pick up on one of the causes of division that each of you cited, which is the way that our House districts are drawn, gerrymandering. Recently in the news, we've seen Texas, under pressure from President Trump, redraw its House districts in a very unusual move between censuses, presumably to benefit the Republican Party. Shortly thereafter, California basically followed suit, did the same to benefit the Democratic Party. And of course, here in New York, gerrymandering is not a foreign concept either. The Court of Appeals just 3 years ago threw out maps drawn by the Democrat-controlled state legislature saying that it essentially had been done behind closed doors to benefit one of the parties. I'm curious if you each can talk about how, first of all, we get out of this race to the bottom. And second of all, if you were the governor of New York or you were in control of the New
I
York
wish
State.
you hadn't brought that up.
I'm only 39. I still have time.
That's right. I'm wondering what you would do that you think would be most beneficial to the state of New York, not necessarily to one party or the other.
Well, there's two pieces of legislation that the Problem Solvers Caucus. Problem Solvers Caucus is 50 members of Congress, pretty evenly divided between Democrats and Republicans. I'm the Democratic co-chair. We work to try to find common ground on things. It's very hard in this toxic environment, but we're constantly working on it. Two pieces of legislation right now that we're working on. One I had a big meeting on this week. One is the Let America Vote Act, which is saying that if you're registered as an independent, okay, so more people are registering independent these days than ever before in the history of the country. And think about it. You're a veteran of the World War II or Korea or Vietnam. You register as an independent. You can't vote in a primary. You can't vote in half the elections. That doesn't seem right. Let America Vote Act, okay? If you're an independent, you can vote in the primaries, for the congressional primaries, presidential primary. That will moderate our politics if we get more people voting. There's no legislation now, but there's mandatory voting in Australia. We don't have mandatory voting. You probably would never get it in America. But if everybody voted, everything would be people would be forced to listen to everybody. So that's one thing, is this Let America Vote Act, let independents vote in primaries. Obviously, the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, is not going to want that in those states that have the control the majority. Number two is to require states to have independent redistricting commissions. And the federal government can't do this on their own. It's under the Constitution. The states get to administer elections. That's the U.S. Constitution. But there's all this money we give to the states for elections after Bush versus Gore and the hanging chads, called HAVA, which is for voting reform. But lots of money is given to the states. We can say you can't get that money unless you let independents vote in these elections, and if you can't get the money if you don't have an independent redistricting commission. So we've got to figure out just how to get more people voting, make a big difference. If it wasn't just, everybody's so busy with their lives, their families, their bills. The people who vote in the primaries are often the people that are out marching and protesting, that are exercised about particular issues that they feel so passionate about, which is great. But we need more people who are not exercised, who right now say, the whole thing stinks, it's all rigged, it's all broken, I don't want anything to do with it.
But I want to ask, though, a follow-up question, because we don't have either of those things. And so we're in a world now where the states are competing with one another for the benefit of the national parties to redistrict for the benefit of their majority party. If you, again, were the governor of New York, what would you be doing in this situation for the state of New York?
Well, first of all, we have to make New York State more attractive. We're in a competitive environment. When I was born, there were over 40 members of Congress from New York State. I was born in 1962. Thank you, Mike. And today we have 26 members of Congress, and it's going down in the next census. And most of the blue states are not competitive right now. We see Florida and Texas exploding, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Arizona, places that are low-tax states. We have to figure out how to make New York State more competitive. As far as the redistricting, we can't do anything in New York State in this current fight of Texas versus California and the other states that are now getting involved, because our Constitution requires us to have 2 successive sessions of the legislature before we can redistrict again, before we can change the Constitution. And the Constitution doesn't let us redistrict except for after the census. I'm talking too much.
I'll jump in here. So the reality of the situation, and I know we're here trying to talk bipartisanship, is that, and it preceded Donald Trump, but Donald Trump has literally made absolutely every single part of our government and our society partisan. You used to, in the judiciary, you would just refer to a judge. Now, all you hear about is who appointed that judge. The judiciary didn't used to be partisan. Our intelligence community was not partisan. Our diplomats, Secretary of State, it was not partisan. And obviously the Department of Justice was not nearly as partisan. So from the Democrats' perspective, we have to fight fire with fire. And if Donald Trump is going to demand that Texas does an unprecedented mid-decade redistricting purely so that Republicans can keep the majority, then we Democrats have to fight fire with fire. There was a bill in 2021, I believe, that would have banned partisan gerrymandering. All the Democrats voted for it, all the Republicans didn't. And so the reality of the situation is that Democrats want to are more aggressive and forceful in trying to get rid of partisan gerrymandering, and that creates a dynamic where we now have one hand tied behind our back. New York can't redistrict right now, even though Texas has no rules against it. Florida has no rules against it. Ohio's going to do it. All of these Republican controlled states have not implemented good government, have not tried to implement these reforms that accomplish what Tom is talking about. And ultimately, we would like to get rid of partisan gerrymandering. But the only way we're going to do that is to win and get the majority and be able to pass that legislation. And the only way we can win is to fight fire with fire and not keep our hands behind our back.
Can I just, before you answer, I just want to bring back a portion, though, of the question that I asked before you answer, which was that 3 years ago, when Donald Trump wasn't president and the Democrats had control of the House, the New York State legislature, which was overwhelmingly controlled by Democrats, ignored a constitutional provision in the state constitution and chose to draw district lines behind closed doors and then had those district lines, because it was so obviously gerrymandered, thrown out by a New York court. So
Which is important.
So
no Texas courts throwing out there.
But so I guess the question is now, putting aside who's to blame for having started this, what is the right answer?
Okay. So I have a very unique perspective on this. I was executive director of the state Republican Party back in 2012 and 2013 when we fought to get the Independent Redistricting Commission. It was actually Senate Republicans in New York controlling the state Senate, working with the Assembly Democrats and the governor at the time, Andrew Cuomo, to come up with this agreement to do an Independent Redistricting Commission. It was passed overwhelmingly by the voters. In 2021, Democrats in New York tried to put a constitutional amendment on the ballot to weaken the Independent Redistricting Commission. Voters overwhelmingly rejected it. They said, no, we're not doing that. We want the Independent Redistricting Commission. Now, I was elected to the state assembly in 2020, and so I served during the period of redistricting. And I voted against the maps. And I debated those maps feverishly on the floor and made very clear they're going to lose in court because they very clearly violated the state constitution. They very clearly circumvented the rules of the Independent Redistricting Commission, and they absolutely gerrymandered the maps. Sean Patrick Maloney, who I later went on to defeat, went to Albany and demanded that they redraw Republicans down to 4 seats out of 26. 4. Okay? So the Democrats went into this saying, we want to gerrymander New York's maps. Kathy Hochul, when she became governor in August of 21, said, I will use the redistricting process to help the Democrats keep the House. Those are her words. So when we went to court and we won, the court ruled rightly that the maps were gerrymandered, and they appointed a special master. The special master drew a fair map. And it's a fair map for a reason. Republicans can get up to 11 seats, and yet right now we're at 7. We could go down as low as 6, maybe even 5. That's a fair map. It's competitive. It allows for people to compete, and it allows for voters to choose. Now, here's the important point. That was a fair map. Republicans picked up 11 seats. We won control of the House. Hakeem Jeffries and Kathy Hochul and the state Democrats then filed a lawsuit. And they demanded that the Court of Appeals order a new map and allow them a second bite at the apple to do, by the way, mid-decade redistricting. And that's exactly what happened last year. New York did mid-decade redistricting. And as a result, Democrats picked up a total of 4 seats, including Tom's, though he won in a special election, but then on the new map he held. His seat got better. That for Democrats. That was done in New York. Now, I've been against gerrymandering. I've been against mid-decade redistricting. I'm in the process of putting a bill forward to ban gerrymandering and to ban mid-decade redistricting. It's wrong. I don't care who does it, whether it's Texas, New York, California, Illinois. It is wrong. We are in a situation, it's not even 380, by the way, it's 400. There are only 35 competitive seats in the House of Representatives determining control of Congress. Mine and Tom's are 2 of the 35. It's absurd. If you had a situation 3 decades ago where over 100 seats were competitive, that's good for the country. That forces members, all of us collectively, to actually have to engage in a much broader coalition of voters to get. So to me, if I were the governor of New York right now, I would recognize that New York actually has a fair map, that the voters demanded it in an independent redistricting commission. They approved it, not once, but they rejected efforts to weaken it a second time. The courts have ruled in New York. The map should stay. I would not pass legislation or a constitutional amendment trying to alter that.
So can I just respond? Mike is right. We all want more independent redistricting. The problem is our president and the leaders of the Republican Party do not. And so,
But neither do the Democrats. Come on, let's be honest here.
Well, let's agree that the three of us do
Democrats
want that,
voted
and
for
let's
it.
figure out how we can work
The
together
voters
against
in
our
New
common
York
enemies.
voted for
No.
it. The voters in New York voted
So
for it.
Can I just say one thing?
There are other things in that.
I want to move on to.
Look, let me just say one thing. We've got to stop fighting Democrats versus Republicans. We have to fight our common enemies. Our common enemies are the cartels and the coyotes and the organized crime bringing people across the border. It's our foreign adversaries that are trying to screw us up. It's the people trying to abuse the system for political or profit gain. We have to work together to go against the common enemies that we have. And we've so easily fallen into our trap of just being against each other because we have to satisfy our parties.
Right. So we can all agree to ban gerrymandering.
All right, so we have 3 out
Yeah.
of.
Talk to your president.
I want to.
Mike will agree that it's wrong to redistrict Texas.
I already said it. I was on record when it happened. I said I do not support the effort to redistrict Texas, and I'm putting legislation forward to ban gerrymandering nationwide.
And Mike will agree. Mike will agree that I'm a great congressman.
In turn, I would ask you two to agree that Kathy Hochul should not redistrict New York.
We shouldn't redistrict unless it's this. We have to unless it's
caveat.
the punch.
Yeah,
count.
of course.
Okay, I want to ask another question.
You're
which
asking us to fight with one hand behind our back.
I want to
No, the
ask.
voters here said we do not want.
I want to ask a question
gerrymandering.
which
The voters.
may or
me.
may not create more harmony on this stage, and it's also an issue that's very much in the news today. We saw today the indictment of James Comey, former head of the FBI, after career prosecutors had hesitated to bring charges against him. Those career prosecutors appear to have been removed under pressure from the President of the United States, and new replacement prosecutors were brought in and secured an indictment. I think there's fear among many that this is just one example of a number of other examples where the Justice Department, which, to Congressman Goldman's point, previously had been seen as something of a nonpartisan bastion, is being, I'll use the word, weaponized to go after enemies of the administration. I have a two-part question. I want to start the first part with Congressman Lawler. As the only member of the Republican Party here, the party of the president. I'm wondering first how you view what's happening with the Justice Department today, and what you have said publicly and what you'd be willing to say publicly about that.
Well, the idea that the Justice Department prior to this year somehow had been a bastion of independence, I think is a little bit laughable on its face. Look, I said last year, the year prior, the Department of Justice should be independent from political interference. It should be independent from the weaponization and the politicization that we have seen. I don't think anybody could say with a straight face that under the Biden administration it was not weaponized. When you are calling parents who are showing up at school board meetings and trying to label them as domestic terrorists, that is a weaponized Department of Justice. It is an effort to go after people for opposing political views. And I think most people, and look, Donald Trump was indicted multiple times, and yet he's the president of the United States, because I think most people in America looked at what was happening and said, wait a minute. We have a system of justice. We have an election system, and the voters should determine who the president is, not the Department of Justice, not the Biden administration, or anyone else. That is a large part of the reason why the president ended up winning. I think, frankly, Tish James, Alvin Bragg, and the DOJ did more to help Donald Trump than anybody politically, because most Americans looked at that and said, wait a minute, that's not the way our system should work.
So
I think, can I finish, Tom?
Yeah, no.
Thanks. So when you're looking at this situation right now, to me, I said after the president won, I don't want to see the Department of Justice being used to go after perceived or otherwise political enemies. I don't want to see the Department of Justice being used as a vehicle by which to target one political party over the other. If somebody committed a crime, if somebody committed a criminal offense, they should be prosecuted, period. That has been the challenge that we have seen with the way our justice system has become politicized over years. This didn't just happen yesterday. This has been happening for years. We have seen in state governments, and we have seen in the federal government a weaponization of the Department of Justice. I don't support that. I don't believe in it. I think it erodes the trust of the American people, and it's part of the reason why we're dealing with these challenges. And we will see what the indictment actually says and what the evidence is.
Do you think that what happened yesterday and today with Jim Comey is at all politically influenced?
Well, I think obviously the president put out a Truth Social statement last week, removing the U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia and appointing another one. The question to me is, what is the actual indictment say? What does the evidence say? I don't think anybody could say that James Comey didn't come before Congress and lie. He did. And I know you're going to spend a lot of time defending the work that you did on the impeachment committee, but the fact is, what was put forth by DOJ and what was put forth by the Democrats on that committee, the facts did not jive. And this whole notion that there was collusion was not true. It did not happen.
That wasn't what he was impeached for.
Where do you think the whole effort to impeach him bore out of?
All of our natural inclination is to punch back at this, okay? You know, the pardoning of the January 6th people,
which I said was wrong.
Putting his personal attorneys in place. I mean, there's so many things we could go into, okay? Punch, counterpunch is the natural inclination of every human being. And in our current society, because of the factors I talked about before, we're encouraged to punch, counterpunch. And, you know, Gandhi said, if we all continue with an eye for an eye, we're all going to end up blind. So let's agree that, you know, I clerked for a federal judge. The judge I clerked for was actually a Republican. I'm like an idealist about the Constitution and America and, the idea of trying to do the right thing, and I believe in people. Let's agree that the politicization of the FBI and the CIA and the Department of Justice and all these other, this is wrong. And we have to figure out how can, and we can fight about, well, I think they did this in the Biden administration, I think they're doing this in the Trump administration. We have to work together against our common enemies, and one of those enemies is the destruction of the norms that exist in our society. And we have to figure out what can we do to help each other to save our country from those people who want to destroy it, who are abusing the systems and the levers that exist. So what's going on right now? Come on. The president is making all this money from cryptocurrency, and he's doing all these personal deals and putting his personal attorneys in place. That's all. Let's work together to set up our society so it'll work for the people and not work for the personal
So are
interests.
you ready
Sorry.
to ban stock trading for members of
Yes,
Congress?
I am
Great.
ready to do
I'm
that.
all for it.
Congressman
So am I.
Goldman.
So you're witnessing a little bit what is happening in Washington, which is that there's a total disconnect between what is happening in Congress and what is going on at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And there is a lot of bipartisan talk. There is a lot of bipartisan work. It goes nowhere because the leadership of the Republican Party, and at this point that is Donald Trump and Donald Trump alone, will not engage in bipartisanship. Now, I was a career prosecutor in DOJ for 10 years. I take it very personally. We don't have time to debate the merits of what Mike said. Suffice it to say that Joe Biden never ordered Merrick Garland to indict anyone. Suffice it to say that Joe Biden never signed an executive order directing the Attorney General to investigate people who had dissented and opposed Joe Biden. It is not equivalent. It is a blatant false equivalency. We don't have time to go through it all, but what I would say, I would go back to what I said at the beginning. And I have a lot of respect for Mike. He's in a very tough situation. But if you are constantly both sidesing what is going on right now and trying to create a false equivalency to say that, oh, well, the Biden administration did it, the American people think that. The American people think that because they were convinced by Donald Trump that happened. And you going back to the impeachment, which I led, every single witness was either appointed by the Republicans or working in the Trump administration. And there were no made-up facts about what we found. We deposed the witnesses. We put them in public hearings. That was the story. The Republicans were very effective at creating a problem that they could then point to, which is to say that they made up out of whole cloth that this was a partisan investigation, and then they used their own conclusion that it was a partisan investigation to vote against it and to try to undermine the credibility of it. And that is what is constantly happening. And I speak out against anti-Semitism on the left as an example. And I think it's very important. I'm the co-chair of the bipartisan anti-Semitism task force. I think it is incredibly important for anti-Semitism to be a bipartisan issue. Mike is one of the strongest Republicans on this issue. But what is vital is that we speak out against what is wrong in our own party. Because if we are apologizing for what is naked politicization of the Department of Justice, and it is literally the things in banana republics, the thing that the United States goes around the world to promote democracy, the core element is that countries cannot retaliate, get retribution, leaders cannot must not prosecute their enemies for political purposes. That is the most corrosive thing to a democracy. And so it is nice to talk about bipartisanship, and we certainly do try to do it in Congress, but if it goes nowhere because the leader of one party will not engage in it, then we have to be realistic. And we have to say, yes, we oppose it. And I'll try to set an example of criticizing my own party where I think it's appropriate. But we all need to do that. Otherwise, we will never get back to the middle and bipartisanship.
But I want to, sorry, I want to pick up on something, though, that Congressman Lawler raised and just ask you and you, Congressman Suozzi. So Donald Trump was prosecuted criminally in the Manhattan district by the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg. He's found guilty. Tish James, our Attorney General, sued Donald Trump and his company and won a $500 million award, which recently was thrown out by the appeals courts. In the case of Alvin Bragg, this was the first time a former president had ever been convicted of a crime. In the case of Tish James, she actually campaigned saying that she was going to go after Donald Trump when he wasn't, at the time, president, I believe. The American people then reelected Donald Trump by a pretty sizable majority as far as national elections go in recent years. What do you think it says about the faith of Americans in the criminal justice system here in New York that, notwithstanding the victories of the prosecutors, Donald Trump was then reelected almost relatively overwhelmingly in the last election?
So I was on record at the time opposing Tish James's assertion that she would go after Donald Trump. As a former prosecutor myself, it is absolutely essential, and it was core to what we did, that there was no partisanship involved in anything. We left whatever our views were at the door, and I actually didn't even know what the political leanings of my FBI agents who I worked with or my colleagues, it was just not an issue. And it is wrong to say and campaign on going after political enemies. That was not the right thing to do. And that does, to some degree, taint what that case and how it proceeded. I draw a very clear division that gets conflated a lot between whatever happened in New York State and what happened in the Department of Justice. And what you will hear from the Republicans is that somehow the DOJ is responsible for what Alvin Bragg did or what Tish James did. And it's not. And we are federal officials. We have oversight and jurisdiction over the Department of Justice. I'm not going to opine on the case in the district attorney's office. I will say Alvin Bragg never did say he was going to go after Donald Trump. And I think there are legitimate questions about whether that was using the discretion was the right case to bring for a variety of reasons. But to your point, Seth, a unanimous jury found him to be guilty. And I agree with you that part of the problem that we are suffering from right now is all of our institutions are under attack. All of every form of accountability is under attack. The media, law firms that file lawsuits to enforce the law, universities, the FBI, the Department of Justice. These are all different democratic measures of accountability that are under attack. And if we are constantly trying to undermine the forms of accountability that make our democracy strong, our democracy is weakened, and the trust in the institutions is diminished, and that is ultimately very bad for the country as a whole. I don't care whether you're a Republican or Democrat.
I want to go back to what you said in your original question about, overwhelming victory. It wasn't no overwhelming victory. It was a relatively close election, and the Congress is evenly divided, the Senate is evenly divided, but the Democrats did lose. Now, why did the Democrats lose, I believe? I believe the reason the Democrats lost is because if you poll the American people and you say, what are the issues that are most important to you? They will say the economy, affordability, immigration, taxes, crime, and health care. That's what people say are the most important issues. I wish education was in there, but that's what people say are the most important issues. If you poll those same people and you say, what do you think the Democrats are pushing? They say choice, LGBT protection, health care, so there's some crossover with that, saving democracy, and climate change. All very important issues. I got a great record on all these issues. But if you want to win elections, you better be talking about what the people care about, which is the economy and affordability, immigration, taxes, crime, and health care. So we should be focusing on those issues as part of our messaging. And part of what's happened is I believe that most Democrats are focused on those issues, but we have not figured out the fractured media environment yet. And we need to be communicating clearly that we want to reduce costs. The president said in his inauguration, I'm going to rapidly reduce costs. Well, costs are going up because tariffs are causing prices to go up. Energy prices are going through the roof because of the data centers, and he got rid of all the green energy projects under the IRA. Health insurance costs are about to go up dramatically because of the expiration of the premium tax credits and people losing their insurance. Immigration is causing wages to go up or overtime to go up because we've lost 1.5 million people from the workforce in the process. And the biggest deficit in the history of the country as part of the BBB, the big beautiful bill, the big ugly bill, is causing upward pressure on interest rates. And we saw a 0.25% reduction by the Fed the other day, but we still have historically high interest rates. So we've got to be talking about, you want lower prices, but these policies are causing higher prices. And not making it personal, not making it Democrat, Republican, but saying these policies are wrong and they are making your life difficult. We got to get back to focusing on that kind of stuff.
So I want to take some questions from our audience. And actually, there's one that relates to your number one topic, the economy. And the question that was asked was, do you think that there's going to be a government shutdown? And if so, what will the impact on the economy of that be?
You want me to go first? Sure. I think that the shutdown is looking more and more likely. And the reason the shutdown is coming is I believe that the president wants there to be a shutdown. I believe that he wants there to be a shutdown. Now, the president has not met with a single Democrat other than John Fetterman in the spring his entire time of his administration. We know he doesn't like Chuck Schumer. He doesn't know Hakeem Jeffries. They've all asked to meet with him on repeated occasions. I've asked to meet with him on occasion. Other people have asked to meet on occasion. I've done bipartisan requests for meetings. He does not want to engage with the Democrats. It's my way or the highway. It's go it alone. I refuse to negotiate. You cannot, the Republicans control the House, they control the Senate, and they control the presidency. You cannot expect the Democrats to get beaten down every day, beaten up, and say, oh yeah, we're going to give you the votes. You can't. Now, Mike says, oh, that's terrible. That's hypocrisy because the Democrats always push for clean CRs. A clean CR is like you're going to continue the spending that was there before without any partisan poison pills in it. And the Democrats are not voting for the proposed clean CR because of, number one, there's a thing called rescission. This is like the pocket vetoing of spending that is really, we believe, violative of the Constitution that's taking place. The power of the purse is through the Congress, not through the executive branch. We believe that's being violated. And this is a different situation. And we're constantly getting beat, and they won't even meet to discuss it. So I think it's going to shut down. I think it's going to have a very bad impact. I think that the way forward is for the president to say he wants to negotiate a deal. He's got to do that.
Congressman Lawler.
Okay, so let's actually walk through the facts here. Back in March, yes, really, back in March of this year, we had a CR to finish the full year of appropriations. Almost none of us wanted that. but we couldn't come to an agreement in a fast enough period of time, and so the decision was made to do a full year CR. Only one Democrat in the House voted for it, Jared Golden of Maine. Every other Democrat voted no. Chuck Schumer said that they would not vote for, that they didn't support it, they didn't agree to it, and then voted for cloture. 7 Democrats voted for cloture to end the debate on the CR and to pass it. Chuck Schumer got his teeth kicked in by the left, by the Democratic base, for weeks. And with the potential of a primary in 2028, Chuck Schumer is very concerned about his far left. And so he is now saying he will not do it. He will not support a CR unless his demands are met. What are his demands? His demands are that the Affordable Care Act subsidies that were put in place under during COVID, that they be extended in perpetuity. Now, if the Affordable Care Act was about making things affordable, I don't know why you would need the subsidy. However, I have signed on to legislation to extend the subsidy by a year because we don't want people to get sticker shock. We don't want people to be negatively impacted. But this was a COVID-era provision to try and soften the blow while people were struggling with unemployment, et cetera. Now, secondarily, they want all of the cuts in the tax bill. They want that reinstated. So they want to increase spending again by over $1 trillion in spending. And they want to make additional spending requests as part of their requirements to vote for a CR, including eliminating the president's ability to do rescissions. Now, rescissions required a vote of Congress, and it passed. And then the president did pocket rescissions on money that was not spent as we're coming to the end of the fiscal year appropriations. I did not support the pocket rescissions. I said that when that came out just a few weeks ago. But here's the reality. From every time Democrats have had the White House, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, they said they support clean CRs. We need to keep the government open and funded. We cannot shut the government down. It would be a disaster for the economy. It would be a disaster for the American people. It would impact Social Security, impact veterans benefits, impact Medicare and Medicaid, impact border security, impact our military. These are quotes from Democrats. I put them in the New York Post yesterday in an op-ed. You can read verbatim what Chuck Schumer, what Hakeem Jeffries, what Nancy Pelosi. I'm sure, Tom, you had quotes on this matter. The fact is, they now no longer believe that. Now it's okay to shut the government down because Donald Trump is president. It's idiotic. I've never supported a government shutdown, no matter who the president is. I voted for every CR while Joe Biden was president and I served, because shutting down the government does not serve a purpose but a political one.
Under every president, there was negotiations between both sides, right?
Do you know last Congress, I think it was before you got here, it was 2023, while George Santos was still in your seat. And by the way, I led the effort to remove him, okay, because he didn't belong in Congress. Yes, I did.
I
Dan.
led the effort to remove
No,
him.
Dan, it was our bill
I
that
led
removed
the
him.
effort to remove him.
It was our bill that removed him, not yours. And the fact is that when you look at 2023, Joe Biden wouldn't meet with Kevin McCarthy, refused to meet with Kevin McCarthy, okay, until Kevin McCarthy said, well, fine, we're not going to move a clean debt ceiling increase. And finally, Joe Biden met with him. In this situation, Hakeem Jeffries, and you were in the meeting. I sat there right there, and I told Hakeem, go reach out to the president. Go ask to meet. And the fact is, they've spent the whole year attacking, calling every name under the sun, fascist, racist, Nazi, this, that, and the other, instead of actually engaging, in a real discussion and debate.
I
and
imagine
that's something they should have done.
you have a different perspective on this. Can you share that?
Look, government shutdowns are terrible. And Mike and many Republicans like to go back in history and quote Democrats from saying things from a different era. And that's
This last year.
that's what we are in. Because what is happening right now is absolutely terrible for the American people. And to the Democrats could do nothing about the one big beautiful bill. Mike talks about increased spending by $1 trillion. The tax cuts increased the deficit by $4 trillion. And that was as part of a bill that cut health care for 17 million Americans. That was a go-it-alone Republican thing. The president has literally taken money that Congress has agreed to appropriate and the president has signed and yanked it back. So you're asking Democrats to just continue the current status quo where we agree to fund whatever it is, and we agree to give Donald Trump the opportunity to say, oh, thanks for signing on to that. I don't want to do that after I made a deal, so I'm just going to cut that funding. I'm going to yank that funding. I'm going to impound it, all this stuff, which the legality of all of that is questionable, and it's going through the courts. But you cannot say, oh, we supported a clean CR way back when, and therefore we must support a clean CR now, when there are no negotiations and they need Democratic votes. So just conceptually, why would Democrats vote for something that they had no role in creating?
So-
It's a clean CR. What is there to negotiate?
So I want
You're
to
keeping the government funded at the current levels. By the way, this is the Biden budget and the Biden policy riders that are in the CR. So this argument that it's Trump, 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 you guys got to think a little bit beyond Trump, okay? Keeping the government funded actually matters. Keeping it open matters. You can't argue on the one
president should
hand.
meet with the Democrats.
Well,
Okay,
then
well,
maybe,
so hold-
maybe
common
Hakeem
sense.
should have went to him
So-
months ago.
He did.
No, he didn't.
He did.
So
no, he didn't, Tom. You were sitting in
and
the
I've
meeting.
done it as well.
Don't say
Something
you-
tells me
you know
that
he
this
didn't.
conversation could go on for much longer, and we're running short on time. We started by diagnosing where the problem was coming from, and at times, all of you, to your credit, have talked about the need to come back together and not just to point fingers, but to figure out a path forward. So I want to end on a slightly more hopeful note, and to ask each of you if there were one thing that you could change that actually you believe can be changed, what would it be that would begin to take the air out of the bubble and begin to bring our country back together so that Washington functions and we can actually solve people's problems? And I'll start with you, Congressman Goldman.
Republicans in Congress need to grow a spine and stand up to Donald Trump. And I appreciate that Mike is saying, that he supports this bill, that he supports that bill. Mike is in a seat where he's not at risk of a primary. He's at risk of a general election. And I think broadly, the policies that the Republicans are pushing through are not helpful to most New Yorkers. And I go back to the thing that I said before, which is that we have to have the courage in elected office to stand up for what is right, regardless of the party, regardless of the tit for tat, regardless of two wrongs make a right. And I think that if we continue to choose party over everything else, over democracy, over the right thing, over our Constitution, and that the tribalism and the party fealty and loyalty controls everything, then we are going in a bad direction. We are going down, continue down this spiral. And Donald Trump does not listen to me. Donald Trump does not listen to Tom. But Donald Trump listens to folks like Mike Lawler, whose seat he needs in order to maintain the majority in the House. And so I hope, and I will work on this myself, because I recognize that I suffer from it as well. We have to be willing to criticize our own party in the name of what is right and what is American. And if we are not willing to do that, then the partisan divide is going to continue more and more and more, and the pendulum is going to continue to swing further and further apart, which is, I think, the biggest disaster for our country.
Sorry, can I just violate my own rule? And I want to just pick up on what you just said. So is there something significant that you would criticize about the Democratic Party with this same goal in mind?
Yeah, I've been very critical of the anti-Semitism on the left. And I think that's certainly something that is, I find very frustrating. I don't like the fact that there are many in the Democratic Party who demonize parts of America and those in America who have achieved the American dream, as if somehow it's a zero-sum game, and that in order for that someone's success must come on the back of someone's disadvantage or lack of success. We as a party need to embrace constructive and productive, solutions-oriented, capitalistic solutions and results. And that what sometimes our party falls into the trap of is trying to create an enemy in order to gain favor, rather than trying to unify all of us for that ultimately, in my view, will lead to the betterment of the entire society, including those people who do need more access to opportunity because it is structurally barred from them getting it. But those are a couple things. I could go on. I think there's a lot. And but I do think that we need to be willing to be more aggressive in speaking out, even at political cost. And for me, there are a number of things I've done that are to my political detriment in my very far left district. And I'm not perfect by any stretch, but the demands of the political realities are really, really strong. But we need more elected officials to show the courage to stand up above those political pressures and do what is right.
Thank you. Congressman Lawler.
So, with respect to the tax bill, I think this is important because they've both said a lot of things about it. Number one, the average New Yorker is going to see a $4,000 tax deduction in a state in which we have the highest tax burden in the country. I proudly fought to lift the cap on salt, and we got that done. It was a 4x increase over the current $10,000 cap to $40,000 with a $500,000 income cap, which most Democrats should be happy with because that means the millionaires and the billionaires aren't going to benefit from it. So I would think my colleagues who have been screaming at me for not getting unlimited would actually embrace that, since we don't want to give the billionaires tax breaks. So that's one. Two, when you look at Medicaid, CMS came out with a report under Biden saying that they were spending $50 billion annually in fraudulent payments. We went after waste, fraud, and abuse within the system. And by the way, Tom DiNapoli, New York State Comptroller, just came out with a report last week that New York State spent $1.2 billion on non-New York State residents. Non-New York State residents paying for their premiums. That is insane. And so when we talk about why our healthcare system is in shambles, when we talk about the problems within, We should be saying, wait a minute, why did that happen? Who were those people? Who approved it? And how do we fix that so it doesn't happen again? We are saying, listen, you need to be eligible, and we're going to verify that you're eligible. There's a reason why under the Biden administration, they lessened eligibility verification. We are bringing it back. We are making sure that the people who collect benefits actually are eligible for them, 1. 2, if you're an illegal immigrant, I'm sorry, we're not paying for your Medicaid. And 3, if you are an able-bodied adult without dependent children, go get a job, and you will be able to collect benefits. So that is
wait.
Excuse me, I let you speak, so I
No,
wanted to speak.
I'm going to agree with you.
The reality here is that these are things that needed to happen. And even with the changes, Medicaid is going to grow by 25% over the next decade,
But
even with the changes that we
Congressman,
made.
I want to just, though, re-ask my question.
I'm getting to your question, but it was
Running out of
important.
time.
Yeah.
Well, you guys should have thought about that. But listen, it is important to actually clarify what we did and why. Okay? And in my district, for instance, 90% of my constituents will be able to fully deduct their state and local taxes. That is a big win for New York. It was the single largest tax cut in the whole bill. Okay? So that is something I'm proud of. I was proud to vote for the bill. I support what we did because the fact is you cannot continue to spend at the rates that we are. It is unsustainable. We're running $2 trillion deficits. We are paying $1 trillion in interest. You have to fix the system.
So, okay,
Look,
so now looking, sorry.
there
now,
not That's the best
Hold-
part.
hold on.
Go actually, the
but
CBO scoring
Congressman,
on this is
let's,
so off.
so just looking forward,
Yeah.
how do we fix the system? What's one thing that you would propose?
Look, I think we obviously touched extensively on it. Gerrymandering needs to be eliminated. I also believe in term limits. I'm sorry. Chuck Schumer's been in elected office 50 years. It's time to go. Go home. Go enjoy your family. 50 years is too long for anybody to sit in a position of power. The fact is, we need term limits. We need to ban gerrymandering. This should be a service, not a career. It is, you have a job to do. You fight for your constituents. Do it as long and as hard as you can. So many of my colleagues, they're good people, but they're jaded. They don't go back to their districts. I'm in my district every week, every weekend. I'm doing 6, 7, 8 events a day. Last Congress, I did 1,200 in-person events in my district. You have to be fully committed to this job. And it really requires that people get out of the DC bubble, go back into your communities, understand the issues impacting your communities. We're going to have, his district and mine are different. We're going to have different issues. There's going to be different priorities for our districts, different political perspectives. But the fact is, you have to engage. I believe that if more members had districts like Tom and mine, even if we disagree, even if it gets a little spicy, that's fine. But the point is, you have to be able to, no, it is. Yeah. And you have to be able to sit down and actually work through the issues. I'm gonna say one thing. Doing reconciliation, I think, is destructive. I don't like it. I think a lot of members don't like it. The Democrats did it with the IRA. Republicans did it with the One Big Beautiful Bill. It is a partisan exercise, and it's not actually, in the totality of legislating, that's not the best way to legislate. So to me, everything should have to be bipartisan. Most of the bills that I've passed and gotten signed into law are. I've passed 11 bills, 6 of which were signed by Joe Biden into law. They all had over 2/3 support because they were bipartisan in nature. So to me, if more people were focused on that, we'd actually get somewhere.
And Congressman Suozzi,
Well,
last word.
Let me first applaud both of my colleagues. I know how tough some of the positions that Dan takes in his district are for him to do it, and he really is a very courageous person trying to do the right thing, so I want to applaud him for that. I want to applaud Mike Lawler for what he does stand up for things in a bipartisan way. I supported the increase in the SALT deduction. Of course, I wish it was higher, but I'm happy that he put his vote on the line and said I would not support the big, beautiful bill unless SALT was included in that, so I applaud him for that and other things as well. I have to say the big, beautiful bill was bad for the country. There's a lot of good things in the bill. There's a lot of terrible stuff in the bill that outweigh them. Biggest deficit in the history of the country, big pressure on interest rates. People's health insurance rates, health insurance premiums are going to go through the roof. You're going to see it coming up at the end of this year. energy prices, your utility bills are going to go up dramatically because there's this increased demand. We've had flat demand for energy for decades, even declining in some years. It's going to be going up dramatically because of the data centers, and we took a whole bunch of new projects offline because we cut the tax credits that were part of the Inflation Reduction Act. So that's like just a bad, bad thing. So for those reasons, we gave unnecessary tax cuts to some of the wealthiest people in the country, cut health insurance and food benefits for some of the lowest income people, and created the biggest deficit in the history of the country. Doesn't make any sense.
And looking forward.
And looking forward, when I was in 7th grade, Sister Ruth said, "The world is moving so fast these days. We have to really stop and think about how things are affecting us." And she was talking about the space race at the time, electronics, television, some things that were happening in healthcare. Things were moving so fast that you can't have a chance to figure out how it's affecting us. That was the 1970s. So things are moving so fast every single minute of every single day today, and it's hard to make decisions in this rapidly changing environment with all these pressures that are on us, and we don't know how it's affecting us. It's, we don't know how this has affected us all, looking down at our phones every day, and so many other things that are happening. The only thing we can rely upon in this fast-moving, ever-changing, quick decision world are our values. What's right? What's wrong? What am I going to do to try and make things better for me, for my family, for my community? Exactly what Dan was saying about the need for us to stand up for the things that we think are right despite the cost, similar to some of the things that Mike was saying as well. And so we need the people to be involved in the electoral process more than they are right now. The far left is like 8%, very secular, ashamed of America's history, young for the most part. The far right, very anti-this, anti-that. They hate these people, they hate those people. Then traditional conservatives and traditional progressives. But the biggest part of the country right now are 52% of the people that are politically disengaged and the politically disenchanted. The whole thing stinks. I don't have time for this. It's all rigged. It's no good. It's killing us. We have to moderate our conversations. We have to get people to disagree with each other without hating each other. And we have to get more people participating in the process. And the thing I talked about earlier about the Let America Vote Act, even though it's a very kind of technical thing, it sounds kind of simplistic. If more people participated, the politicians would be required to listen to the people. I have to listen to everybody in my district. I can't win if I don't listen. I got to listen to my base. I got to listen to the independents, and I got to listen to the Republicans, at least the ones that are more independent-minded. If I don't, I'm not going to win. It's impossible. And if you just have to listen to your base all the time, that's what's killing our country. You got to listen to the people. And to do that, the people need to be more involved, and the people need to vote in the elections. The Let America Vote Act suggests a way to do that. Thank you.
So we've just heard from three very important people to the state of New York, all of whom are really dedicated civil servants, servants of the people. And I wanted, first of all, to thank the three of them for their incredible service. And I also wanted to thank the three of them for coming together and having this conversation. At times it got heated, at times there were disagreements, but the important thing is that the three of them were here, they were talking to one another, all of you are here and listening and contributing questions as well. So I wanted to thank them for that. Hopefully this is a model that more people and more places around this country will follow, and I hope everyone has a great day.
Thanks, everybody.